A very good morning to you, wherever you are watching us from. You are in time for live proceedings from the National Assembly. This Wednesday morning, it is the 29th day of September 2021. And as per tradition, the morning sitting reserved for private members' bills and motions. And as such, we have not less than 5 bills that are scheduled for debate this morning, and that is excluding 2 that will have the members deciding on the next step, debate having been concluded. And of course, the next stage will be a committee of the whole House for amendments to be made, and I'm talking about the Kenya Deposit Insurance Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of the year 2020. It is sponsored by Honorable Abdul Rahim Dawood, and this one speaks to amending Section 28 of the Kenya Deposit Insurance Act 2012, and this will be in order to increase the maximum amount a person with an account with Deposit Insurance Corporation. This bill further seeks to delete provisions, limitation to come in and participate in the session. A minimum 50 required as per the member standing orders, and also as approved by themselves. And just to run down a number of bills scheduled for consideration this morning, including a decision via putting the question to the Kenya Deposit Insurance Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of the year 2020. It is sponsored by the Honorable Abdul Rahim, the Cabinet Secretary, Lands and Physical Planning. This one captured under the ordinary questions segment. And he is seeking answers as to the ownership status of parcels of land, specifically LR 3334 and 4422, which had been set aside for public use in Embakasi East Constituency, but which he says have since been illegally acquired by a private developer. He seeks to know details of the developers who have illegally acquired the said parcels of land. And also, he is inquiring whether the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning has plans to undertake or institute any action against those responsible for that irregular transfer process. He also wants to know plans by the ministry to ensure that such acts are revoked and that the land in question is reverted to the community for public use. The Honourable Patrick Macau, Member of Parliament, Mavoko Constituency, also has questions for the same ministry under the same segment, ordinary questions. And he wants to know when the dispute surrounding ownership and use of public utility parcels of land in Syokimau, Mavoko Constituency, will be resolved. He also wants to know the steps the ministry is taking to stop any further illegal acquisition and subdivision of the said parcels of land, and also what that ministry is doing to ensure title deeds that may have been illegally acquired are revoked and the legitimate owners are given the crucial documents. The Member of Parliament, Ainabkoi Constituency, Honourable William Chepkut, has some questions for the Cabinet Secretary Education. He wants to know the rationale for recent increase in fees and student hostel accommodation cost by the University of Nairobi. This is an issue that has been highlighted in the first few weeks by the media. He also wants to know whether the university has conducted stakeholder engagement before effecting the increment, considering that that institution mostly relies on funds from the Higher Education Loans Board, and that is for the students who use that money to pay for academic and accommodation fees. Member of Parliament Nyaribari Masaba, Honorable Ezekiel Mwachogu, will be seeking answers from the Cabinet Secretary, Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works concerning progress of construction of Sosera Ramasa Road in Nyaribari Masaba constituency and why the project, which started in 2019, is yet to be completed. He also wants to know the terms of the initial contract, and also just for the ministry to outline the process it is undertaking to ensure that particular project is completed. Then the last question, as listed in the order paper, will be from the Member of Parliament, Tigania East, Honorable Josephat Kabebea, to the Cabinet Secretary, Interior and Coordination of National Government. And he wants to know why staff are yet to be deployed to new locations and sub-locations created in Tigania East constituency, despite gazettement of that directive more than 5 years ago. He also wants to know what measures the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government is undertaking to ensure the said administrative units are adequately staffed and to ensure that chiefs and their deputies are recruited to facilitate enhanced service delivery in the said administrative units. These questions will be asked in the House, and of course they will be replied to via the various House committees, the relevant ones, according to the needs or the requirements, as it were. So the quorum bell is still ringing, and once it stops, if there is no quorum yet, which is a minimum 50, then the Speaker will order for that bell to continue ringing again, or rather to be rung again for another 5 or so minutes, after which, if that quorum is not yet achieved, then he will have the discretion to decide the next move, which ordinarily will be to adjourn the sitting until the next time it is scheduled, and in today's case, it will be this afternoon. And that is well captured in the standing orders of the National Assembly. The orderlies there keeping tabs. They're just checking to make sure that members are coming in, clocking in, and that number is achieved. Which hopefully will be soon, so that business can begin this morning. Quite a number of bills and motions are lined up, and considering that is what should be dispensed with this morning, just according to what is required in this morning's sitting. These are bills sponsored by members themselves, and therefore it will be in order for them to participate in this session. A recap of yesterday afternoon, we had members approving a motion seeking adoption of a report from the Committee on Delegated Legislation that considered draft election campaign financing regulations. This was submitted by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission on the 5th of August 2021 and considered by that committee, an issue that was discussed in the House, and yesterday members did agree on this particular matter, even as they noted that the IEBC should be put to task to clarify some of its communication, which they felt was not quite understood And of course, this particular committee recommended that contributions and spending limits for political parties and candidates for purposes of general elections be annulled. They also rejected draft election campaign financing regulations in entirety. And of course, that decision supported by members. We also had amendments being made to the National Hospital Insurance Fund, Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of the year 2021, a bill that seeks to make a few changes to that particular law just to streamline operations at the NHIF and saying that the country is working towards universal health coverage. This is a live broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. 44 minutes past the hour, and that is 9 a.m. We are still waiting for that number 50 to be achieved so that business can commence in the House this morning. And as per the outlook, just a few more, maybe one or two, and then the session will be good to go.
All right. Honorable members, take your seats.
Of course, members adhering to COVID-19 prevention protocols.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
I think I have something. Proceed.
Order number 4, petitions.
Order, members. Order. Honorable members, Standing Order 225 2B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. Further, Article 119 of the Constitution provides for the right of any person to petition Parliament to consider any matters within its authority, including petitioning the House to enact, amend, or repeal any legislation. In this regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received petition from Mr. Samuel Gilbert Njenga Karumbi of PO Box 32180 Nairobi, seeking compensation for the loss of family property destroyed as a result of skirmishes that occurred in Githunguri, Kiambu County in 1997. The 62-year-old petitioner, who hails from Riagidu village in Githunguri, avers that on 9th December 1997, the Kenya African National Union Party, KANU, held party nominations in Githunguri town, which his brother, Mr. Stephen Waweru Njenga, vied for nomination for Githunguri parliamentary seat. Disputes arising from the party nomination led to politically instigated skirmishes, where thugs burnt 3 houses, maimed his mother with an axe, burnt a new pickup van, slashed 6 cows to death, uprooted bananas and maize from the farm, and caused considerable damage to the entire homestead while mocking the family following his brother's loss in the nominations. Honorable members, the petitioner who has unsuccessfully attempted to obtain redress from the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government seeks intervention of this House in order to secure compensation for the loss of property and distress occasioned to his family. Honorable members, having determined that the matter raised by the petitioner are well within the authority of this House, I order that the petition be committed to the Departmental Committee on Administration, National Security, The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House under the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 2272. I thank you. I see a few members want to comment on this one. Now, I'll give 4 members. Well, if not more. Let's start with the Honorable Manzo Kitonga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to comment on this very important petition. Although under the law, the petitioner cannot now sue the government because of a time lapse, he has every right to come to this House for assistance, and I think nominations violence or election violence is a very destructive affair, and it comes out of competition. In this case, they are the ones who lost and still suffered damage, and that tells you how painful it is, how it damages, very important property which would have served the family very well, and this results into destruction of property also, and means losses and the livelihood of that particular family and that particular individual. So I think it is something really, other than what the House is going to do here, we have to come up with a very strong law, because there isn't. What happens is nominations of political parties is very chaotic. Even up to today, you could be expected to be nominated, you may not be nominated, violence may ensue, and then you miss your chance in this House. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, even 70% never comes back out of botched or rigged nominations. And even what follows immediately, you go to tribunals inside the party, and when you try to go to High Court, it's not an election petition, so you are struck out at the same time people are campaigning, and you lose your chance to this House or an opportunity to be in politics unfairly. So I think other than just the House looking at this particular petition should be looked universally, so that we can even come up with a better way of dealing with nominations in political parties, competition. And a lot of occasions, once the nominations are over, Mr. Speaker, the election is over. And a lot of times, even you are given a certificate, you go to IBC, you are told it is not the one, you find somebody else has already been cleared by your party, and there is no legal redress. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a very important petition, and I think when the House looks at it, let's look at it universally to solve this problem once and forever. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, though I felt you meant, because when you say universally, you are including the international systems. I thought you could say broadly. I know that's what you meant. So let's have the member for North Imenti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to join the petitioner.
And let's be brief so that many more members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the matter of electoral violence, it needs to be tackled. I mean, this petitioner is talking about electoral violence which was meted on him. But, Mr. Speaker, as we are approaching the elections next year, we need to now tame people's appetite for violence, because, Mr. Speaker, not just burning things, even having, when there are meetings being done, intolerance should be condemned completely, like what happened even in my constituency on Sunday. So, Mr. Speaker, those kind of things we need to take care of, and NCIC should even see how they can tame these people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the Honorable Sankok. And by the way, what time do you place your card? Because
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I come early, and I have told you, I come before the Speaker and leave after the Speaker, because I was taught by my parents to earn from my sweat. And this is my workstation, so I must be in my workstation on time. Honorable Speaker, electoral violence, and I think it was action by a loss, Honorable Speaker. And this electoral violence, we have to address it once and for all in this House. And I think what we threw out in this House of the issue of having a capping on the amount of money that we'll be using in campaigns, Honorable Speaker, is something that we have to rethink and to relook, Honorable Speaker, because sometimes it is a mega loss when we have spent a lot of money, and this is what causes emotions, Honorable Speaker. Apart from ethnic and tribal alienation, Honorable Speaker. It is the amount that you have used during campaign that you think now are lost, Honorable Speaker, when you lose such certificate, Honorable Speaker. So I think we should actually have that capping in election financing bill, Honorable Speaker. We'll have to look that one so that we give a maximum for the president should not use more than 1 billion, Honorable. So the emotions will not run high. For a member of parliament, you should be advised probably to use even 5 million, Honorable Speaker. So,
Okay.
So thank you very much, Honorable
right.
Speaker.
Honorable Okello Odoyo.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in law there is what we call the doctrine of laches, where somebody would want to come out after a very long period of time to seek relief. But suffice to say, this is a person who was meted on electoral violence by goons and as a result lost humongous amount of property. Well, I do not think the law of laches would apply in this case, that he will be refused, seeking his reliefs. But, this is a lesson to all of us, Honorable Speaker, particularly those who are in this House and those who are wishing to come to this House, that certain times when we meet violence on innocent people, the destruction takes too long to be indemnified. And that is why this gentleman has come before us. And this is a petition that I would support, but with a rider that Kenyans need to learn very great lessons out of this, that it doesn't pay to get involved into any form of violence. We need to live as one unitary society, and that informs the Azimio la Umoja, so that together we live as brothers and sisters without necessarily having to fight over leadership positions. At the end of the day, Kenya will stay, our brothers and sisters will stay, but if you lose your life in violence, it doesn't pay anything. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, Honorable Pukose, and I think I'll give 2 more members.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I want to support this petition. Skirmishes during elections, I think we need to relook at our law and this is also related to the leadership, because when leaders do not accept results and they go to Uhuru Park to swear themselves, they set bad examples. And the same leaders, they are the ones who mobilize people in Kibra to be able to plug the railway line. So this is a depiction of the society we have. And it should start from the top so that people down there can be able to follow example. Otherwise, we would not be talking of election violence and skirmishes. We will not be talking of election violence and skirmishes.
What is your point of order, Honorable Odoyo? What's your point of order?
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. It is not in order for Honorable, my friend Pukose, to apportion blame on Kibra, yet the petitioner has ably said where he comes from, and that is Kiambu. Kiambu is not in Kibra unless his geography is at stake. So he has to put this petition exactly where it needs to belong. But let's not drag Kibra here.
Well, of course, I hear you, member for Nyando. But you see, like you heard what your colleague earlier said. He talked about having this, looking at it broadly. That's the member for Makueni. So probably the member for Endebess is trying to look at it broadly.
Yes.
So
thank you, Honorable Speaker. I know
But what I do not want you to do, the Honorable Pukose, is to really bring a lot of unnecessary emotions into this, because if we start throwing words at each other, probably we lose out at this the petition, which is specific by this member. So as you do it broadly, let's try and get something that can help.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your guidance and also for assisting the member for Nyando to understand that I was broadly looking at it. Honorable Speaker, I think when the committee looks into this when it looks into this petition by the member from Githunguri, I think it will be important that
we have the member for Tigania East. Member for the Tigania East, and that should be the last one in this particular segment. Honorable Kube.
Thank you.
Kabea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is about many administrative units which were created and gazetted, but they have never been functional because there has never been chiefs and assistant chiefs employed. So in this regard, I stand to ask question number 384 of 2021, and it reads, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why staff are yet to be deployed to the new locations and sub-locations created in Tigania East constituency despite the gazettement more than 5 years ago? And then the question part 2 reads, what measures is the ministry taking to ensure that the same administrative units are adequately staffed, particularly ensuring that the chiefs and assistant chiefs are recruited to facilitate enhanced service delivery in same administrative units? Thank you, Speaker.
So, first of all, having committed the other question to Lance, I commit this particular one to the Departmental Committee. It will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. So then we go to statements. We will start with the Honorable Olago Aluoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to request a statement of the failure of the Teacher Service Commission to pay enhanced house allowances to teachers in Mombasa and Kisumu cities. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to understanding order number 44, sub 2, sub C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Education, regarding the failure of the Teacher Service Commission to pay enhanced house allowances to all teachers engaged in all schools within the boundaries of Mombasa and Kisumu cities, as defined under the Urban Areas and Cities Act number 13 of 2011. Mr. Speaker, under that act, Mombasa and Kisumu are defined as cities. And under the collective bargaining agreement between the Teacher Service Commission on one hand and the Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers, all teachers engaged within these cities are entitled enhanced house allowances. Mr. Speaker, since 2011, the Teacher Service Commission has been paying the enhanced house allowances only to some teachers in some schools in a manner that is not only opaque, but also discriminatory. Mr. Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson to address the following issues. Number one, could the chairperson explain why the Teacher Service Commission does not pay all teachers engaged in Mombasa and Kisumu cities equally? And number two, what criteria does the Teacher Service Commission apply in determining which teachers and in which schools in Mombasa and Kisumu are to be paid the enhanced house allowances? Number three, is the chairperson satisfied that the criteria applied by the Teacher Service Commission is not unlawful or discriminatory? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, is the chairperson able to inform the House when payments of enhanced house allowances, together with accrued arrears to all affected teachers within Mombasa and Kisumu city boundaries, will be effected? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one is referred to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Then we go to the next one by the Honorable Sarah Korere.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Orders 44.2c, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding the failure by security agencies to process local intelligence information in order to deter banditry attacks in Olmoran area in Laikipia County, Laikipia North constituency. Honorable Speaker, over the past 2 months, residents of Sosian Ward in Olmoran County in Laikipia North constituency have suffered banditry attacks, which has resulted in loss of human lives, destruction of properties, cattle thefts, disruption of learning and other socio-economic activities in the area. This has consequently necessitated the rearming and facilitation of community national police reservice to ensure protection of life and property. Facilitation of insecurity-prone police posts and stations in terms of both equipment and personnel, and opening up and maintenance of security roads for ease of movement of security personnel. Honorable Speaker, it is on account of this concern that I seek your indulgence under Order 218-2 and ask you to direct the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security to urgently inquire into matters, particularly on the following issues. 1, failure by security agencies to process local intelligence information in order to deter banditry attacks in Olmoran area, Laikipia County. 2, the plans put in place by the ministry to rearm National Police Reservice in 3 wards in Laikipia North constituency that are prone to insecurity, namely Sosian Ward, Mugogodo East, and Mugogodo West wards. Number 3, delay in establishing Tura and Nadungoro General Service Unit and anti-stock theft unit camps as undertaken by the ministry that are very crucial in deterring banditry invasion. Number 4, budgetary allocation for purposes of opening up security roads in the 3 named wards above. And 5, Mr. Speaker, actualization of the gazetted and administration units to ensure improved efficiency of government services in the vast Laikipia North constituency. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Then we now go to the next. That one will be referred to, of course, to the Committee on Security and National Administration and National Security Committee. So next order.
Order number 8, the Kenya Deposit Insurance Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2020, second reading, question to be put.
That one will not be, the question will not be put. We do not have the required numbers on that one and the next one. Read the next order.
Order number 9, the Kenya Food and Drugs Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2029, second reading, question to be put.
Same fate, so the question will also not be put. Just a minute. I can see there is a member who has raised the fact that there could be numbers. Now give me a minute to confirm. I have already confirmed, but I can confirm beyond doubt. Let's leave it there, Honorable Pukose, because the other consequences can even be more adverse. So please, let's leave it there. Then the numbers will be required for the question to be put. Next order, please.
Order number 10, the Employment Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 79 of 2019, second reading, resumption of debate.
Now, on this particular one, we have a remainder balance of 3 hours and 10 minutes. I want to confirm whether it was moved and seconded. Yes, it was. And there was, and Honorable Ombaka, Honorable Dr. Ombaka had a balance of 9 minutes. She is absent, so only 2 members had spoken, so the rest of the members have an opportunity. They can. Honorable Maore, you want to speak on this one? You want to speak on this? No. Honorable Koskei Kimutai, you want to speak on this one? You want to speak to this? Okay. The Honorable Dawood? Honorable Wangwe, you want to speak to this? The next one. Honorable Koi Waluke. Queuing. Honorable Wilson Sosion. Honorable Sankok. I would be very surprised if Sankok doesn't want to speak to this. He speaks to every bit of legislation that is brought here.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this, the Employment Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 79 of 2019. Honorable Speaker, that was moved by Honorable Gideon Keter. Honorable Gideon Keter is a youth and is representing the youth properly in this House, Honorable Speaker, because we know that the employment issue is very emotive when it comes to the youth, Honorable Speaker. Currently, Honorable Speaker, our country have 4 million unemployed youth, and this is a time bomb if not taken care of, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, and youth have always been taken for granted in this country, Honorable Speaker. You remember, Honorable Speaker, the shenanigans around the BBI, Honorable Speaker, when the youth were promised tax holiday, tax waivers, Honorable Speaker, and they are unemployed. How do you waive taxes from somebody who was not paying taxes in the first place? Honorable Speaker, Honorable Keter is simply saying youth need employment, not tax holidays. We thank God that the document was declared illegal, unconstitutional, null and void because it was devoid of any assistance that it will give to the youth who are a time bomb because of lack of employment, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Article 54 of our Constitution is very express when it comes to the employment of persons with disabilities, that 5% of all job opportunities in this country should be allocated to persons with disability, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as it is constituted now today, the Cabinet, Honorable Speaker, is not properly constituted in line with Article 54 of our Constitution because there is no person with disabilities in that Cabinet, Honorable Speaker. Even though I heard that the Cabinet have not been sitting for the past 8 months, meaning Kenya is on autopilot because the Cabinet is normally the highest organ in terms of security, in terms of development of all the issues that affect our country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, the CAS position, the principal secretary positions are not well constituted in line to Article 54 of our Constitution because they lack person with disability, apart from the PS position where we have Honorable Joseph Tamkobe representing person with disability there. Honorable Speaker, if the highest organ of our government management, of the executive, does not represent person with disability, Honorable Speaker, then our employment is in question because our employment in terms of representation is not up to standard in terms of adhering to our Constitution. Honorable Speaker, our youth are suffering out there, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Keter came up with a bill concerning even what we are requesting the potential employees to produce in terms of higher education clearance certificate, in terms of tax compliance certificate, in terms of certificate of good conduct, Honorable Speaker. They end up spending a lot of money, Honorable Speaker, apart from spending money tarmacking or potholing, because our tarmacs are full of potholes, around the country seeking for employment. They also use a lot of money in paying the government a lot of money in tax compliance certificate, in certificate of good conduct, when they are searching jobs that are not there, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this bill seeks to remedy such finances that are levied on our potential employer, on our youth, Honorable Speaker, so that they can only, the potential employers can only request for such certificate when they are assured that this person have been shortlisted and they are coming for interview and that they have benefited from the employment, Honorable Speaker. So that you don't use, because currently youth can apply as many as 100 job opportunities in a year. So if you have applied for 100 job opportunities in a year, and every job that you have applied to require a certificate of good conduct, clearance certificate from KRA, clearance certificate from HELB, Honorable Speaker, you'll use a total of 5,000 to apply for one job. So if you apply for 100 jobs and you don't get any of them, you have already spent almost $500,000 in just job application, Honorable Speaker, before even you get that job, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this House must address this issue of unemployment. And Honorable Speaker, I can assure you, what you have heard about the bottom-up economic model, even though many people don't understand, it is the remedy of this youth unemployment, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, because the money that we have used to resuscitate KQ will be able to support small enterprises of Mamamboga, small enterprises of Boda Boda, M-Pesa shops, almost 1 million of them, Honorable Speaker. Those are 1 million job opportunities, 1 million new taxpayers, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we should specifically make laws in this House that target the small, medium enterprises, Honorable Speaker. Because for a long time in the trickle-down form of economic model, we have targeted the large corporates, Honorable Speaker, KQ, Honorable Speaker, Safaricom, Honorable Speaker, Kenya Power, Honorable Speaker, so that we can protect them in terms of law, so that they can become monopolists. While we are thinking that they will offer job opportunities, they are laying off employees. While we thought we'll benefit from these big corporate paying taxes, they end up declaring nil in return, meaning they don't even pay those taxes. While we thought they will have corporate social responsibilities, it is private entities like Equity that have corporate social responsibility. KQ will never see any corporate responsibility. Those big corporates have been open for massive corruption, Honorable Speaker. They will not offer any employment opportunities. But in the bottom-up economic model, where then you target the bottom of the pyramid, it will be very difficult for the thieves, the people in Kemsa scandal, the people mentioned in the Mavi House scandal, the people mentioned in COVID billionaires, to access, to corrupt, to steal from Boda Boda, to steal from Mamamboga, to steal from the kiosk. So, Honorable Speaker, what will sort out the 4 million jobless youth in this country is the bottom-up economic model. Honorable Speaker, even though some people don't understand, they think in terms of the bottle, they think in terms of alcoholism, Honorable Speaker. But this, Honorable Speaker, will be the savior of this time bomb in terms of youth unemployment, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, I will urge Gideon Keter, as we go forward, Honorable Speaker, let us also try to convince that our country and our government, executive to be specific, that we invest in labor-intensive infrastructure rather than capital-intensive infrastructure. Our country is still poor, but we have enough human resource, Honorable Speaker. If we invest in labor-intensive infrastructure, we will create more jobs. An example is this expressway, Nairobi Expressway, that cost us 80 billion and only created an employment opportunity of 3,000 Kenyans. And it will only benefit a few of us, Honorable Speaker, who will go to the airport regularly, Honorable Speaker. But if it was labor-intensive infrastructure, Honorable Speaker, we will...
Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you have a lot of respect for Honorable Sankok. And when he is making a statement of economic concern, it should be a real statement, Honorable Speaker. He should understand, Honorable Speaker, that labor is a function of capital. And you cannot dismiss the two, Honorable Speaker. So when he is dismissing capital to labor, Honorable Speaker, and yet he is speaking to the nation, let us not portray the House as if we don't have an understanding of an economic function, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
To say, Honorable Sankop, you know you are a medic, not an economist. So
Honorable Speaker,
sometimes you mix
Honorable Wangwe is also far from being being a businessman. Honorable Speaker, because my time is up, what I said is that the expressway is capital intensive. It uses a lot of money, Honorable Speaker, 80 billion to be specific. Let me give him an example. Let me give you an example, Honorable
What
Speaker.
is your point of order,
If it was
Honorable Maure?
affordable housing, we would have
Speaker.
created four.
Order. What is it?
I think, Mr. Speaker, it's good for the record of the House. Members don't just put words that, apart from incitement, no other value. The member is quoting the expressway and putting a price tag on it when he knows, but wants to mislead. I'm asking whether it is order for the honorable member to allow into record that there are taxpayers' money from the national treasury by this government or whichever government that has gone into the expressway before he sits down with that kind of reckless talk.
Honorable Speaker, whether it is borrowed money, it is Kenyans who will pay eventually that borrowed money, and the borrowed money is Kenyan money. Honorable Speaker, it is through private-public partnership, and through private-public partnership, Kenyans will eventually pay. If we use the affordable housing, 80 billion will be able to construct approximately 80,000 units, and each unit will require a plumber, a carpenter, 5 of them. We will have created 400,000 jobs instead of 3,000 jobs. Do your maths very well, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm clear in my mind, and I know what I'm talking.
So your time is over. So we go to the next member. I'm having problem picking members because I see many members get are placed their names to request to speak, and they actually want to speak to the next one. So probably let me start with the majority leader, because as per the standing order, of course, you know he takes priority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill and congratulate the member for not only this bill, but several others that he has sponsored. And I believe that's the spirit where we want members to be fully involved in legislation. So congratulations, Honorable Gideon Keter, for bringing this and readdressing the issue affecting the youth in this country. Because, Honorable Speaker, we know that the job opportunities, not just in Kenya, on a global basis, are on a decline. COVID did not help. We saw from the statistics by Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that upwards of 1.2 million people could well have lost their jobs and sources of livelihood because of COVID and the disruption that has made in the way people do business or relate within the workplace. But, Honorable Speaker, the Constitution of 2010 introduced this Chapter 6 and declared what people must comply. But unfortunately, it also brought within it these onerous responsibilities that, for you to even seek a job, to get employed, you need to get all these clearances from several people. And whereas the intention is good, the cost associated with that has been estimated at close to 5,000 shillings for one to actually get the various certificates. Now, for a jobless Kenyan, it's a cost we need to relook at, especially because these certificates are given by the government. And in the spirit of this bill, if we are able to resolve this issue, as I see it within the bill, that you will not be required to pay unless there's certainty you're going to get employed, then it makes sense. So there is a background check, but only after you have made the cut, then you can be told, before we give you the contract, bring the following. But not at the point of you applying, you are required to do all those, so it becomes like the checks. The integrity checks become
an integral part of the interview, whereas it should be your competence at that point that matters. And then among the competent, you then have the people who make the competence mark, then being required to pay. And I believe that should be the spirit, but making people incur costs may not be exactly the necessary, the way to go. So I support it in terms of principle. It's a very straightforward bill. It's simple. We don't even need to belabor much of it. And I do hope that the committee will also guide us in terms of whether there's any other tinkering with it that's required to make it work. But this is the kind of thing that we need for our youth, the policies, the laws, to facilitate them, to remove the bottlenecks that hinder them from accessing employment. And I know the Honorable Sankok may want to appeal to another audience out there, but and I don't want to even respond to what he's saying, but I know you've been mentioned, which is fine. No, we can mention anyone.
Order, take your seat, Honorable Sankok. I mean,
you just, Honorable Sankok just spoke.
Sitting from where I am, and I'm able to see when you are adversely mentioned.
Yes.
But just mentioning, like I've just mentioned you as Sankok, does not really require you are. Order, Honorable Sankok. Lately, you are a very agitated man. I do not know why you relax like you've always been. What is your point of order then, so that we see whether there is a major issue that we cannot see?
Honorable Speaker, I'm a member of Parliament, a honorable member of Parliament. And when the Honorable Amos Kimunya, who I respect very much as my leader, says that I'm talking to appeal people outside there, I'm not appealing anybody. We are making law. I've mentioned the employment of persons with disability, the employment of youth. So am I appealing anybody outside there?
No, Honorable.
He's out of order. I'm representing my constituency.
Why you are actually out of order is that because actually the majority leader has stated what is obvious. You definitely are appealing to an audience within and without, and that is why we have put our broadcast live. You could be appealing to the persons with disability or anybody else. So actually, he's actually basically confirming.
I'm not appealing, I'm stating the facts.
Okay. Yeah, what I'm just saying, take your seat on the board.
Thank you, sir.
Take your seat and relax, So I've just said there was absolutely nothing wrong with you appeal, because that's the business of a member of parliament. Yeah. You are supposed to appeal to your colleagues here to support your case, which unfortunately this is not yours, but you also talk to the public out there because it's your business to represent them. You could be representing everybody, especially you being nominee 001. You probably are representative in REM. I do not know if you understand that particular bit, Mr. Honorable Sankok. That is appealing to the world. Yeah, in REM. Yeah? I understood. That's why I explained, because I realized you are not a lawyer, you are a medic. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I believe you've really helped Honorable Sankok to understand what he actually just did. But going by, I believe the spirit of creating employment through infrastructure projects does not mean that it's not a choice between housing and expressway. The expressway is necessary, and the housing is necessary. And I know the housing program, I know should have created was targeted to create over half a million housing units, but it was not expected that 500,000 housing units will be done overnight. It's a process. It requires bringing people, and as of now, we know, for example, there's already 2,500 housing units that have been completed and have been handed over to the buyers. Just this week, there's another 1,242 that have been contracted to be done. And across the entire country, when you look at Mombasa, when you look at everywhere, all these units are being constructed and it's creating employment. So it's not one or the other. All these projects should be going on in tandem. And that's what I'm saying. Let's not kind of tell the youth out there that you're lacking employment because expressway is being done. Expressway is a public-private partnership, nothing to do with government funds. And hence, you want to encourage many more of those to come, including the housing units in each of the counties through the PPP frameworks. That's what you need to encourage to get youth employed, including what we are doing within our CDF projects. We are creating employment. But let's not give that impression that funding has been channeled to a certain direction, so it's creating unemployment in a certain direction. You must look at the country and what's happening from a holistic perspective. But like I said, the sure way to help the youth is let's commit things to policy, let's commit things to laws, and not the empty sloganeering that we hear in political rallies, youth just being incited, they'll be given money. But even when we are telling them to apply for the Kenya Youth Empowerment and Opportunities Program, IOP, which is now at Cycle 7D, for youths between 18 years to 29 years who've never passed beyond O-level. And they're entitled, once they compete, they could access up to 40,000 shillings of government grants plus training. You still feel the youth saying, no, they don't want that, they want to wait for some futuristic promises that have been given, that they will be given 100,000 to start a business. We know, until that money has been appropriated by this House, until we have the legal framework to do that, we know it's just an empty promise. Yet there's funding available, but we are confusing our youth through the messaging by politicians who are there to make political capital by misleading the youth that the reason they don't have jobs is because of what the government is doing or not doing. And yet there's a lot of money out there available for the youth. So going back to Honorable Keter, I thank you very much for this. And I do hope members will support it. It's a good bill. And the youth of this country will see that this House is also conscious of that fact. And indeed, these are the same thing that the youth told the promoters of BBI, the steering committee, in terms of, yes, we would want in future some of these burdens to be removed. It also goes in tandem with what the President Hood has been committed in terms of reducing the cost of doing business. And that reducing the cost of doing business is not necessarily just restricted to the companies. The cost of doing business should also be extended to the individuals as they interact. So all this is quite in tandem with what's happening. But because of the noise that we hear over the weekends by people who are in government but don't want to accept the government and want to rubbish what the government is doing, so it ends up clouding all the good things that are being done, and people are left to imagine that, as Honorable Sankok says, the government is on autopilot. Government cannot work on autopilot. Every decision that takes place, there are people who have thought through it, and not to forget that we are part of that government. The National Assembly, Parliament is part of government. So when Honorable Sankok now wants to mislead people and say that the government is on autopilot, and we are here, as part of that government. Now, then it changes the perception out there that perhaps we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And whether you look at, I'm aware that cabinet meets. I'm aware that the executive works. Now, if some members of the cabinet who are paid for being in cabinet and who draw, who are in government residencies, but if they choose not to participate in government, it does not mean the rest of the government is not working or the rest of the government is not functioning. But some people have actually decided, I don't know whether the honourable member is speaking on behalf of those people who are in government who have decided not to participate in government and to rubbish government, but we know government is working. And that is proof based on all the things that happen. Members of this House are privy to that information. I think we are always going to meet ministers in their, they come to appear before the committees, they respond on what is happening within government. We go lobbying for them in terms of projects.
Let me get the point of order from the member.
Okay.
Doctor, but before you do that, let me direct that members as you rise so that you don't make it a house of just raise issues from nowhere. Please, can you quote the point of order? And then you must also be understanding your own standing orders, where the honorable member is either out of order or you want to inform. Please, can you do that? Otherwise, I'll rule you out of order if you make it a debate.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The Honorable Leader of Majority is misleading the House.
Which point of order? And which standing order are you referring to?
Honorable Speaker, it is misinforming the House that there are members who have abandoned or decided not to be in government. We'd like him to name which member has abandoned the government. And we are also very clear to the fact that the government moved to opposition. Why is he not articulating that particular fact? There's a government in confusion. It's not a government.
Honorable Leader of Majority.
Well, it's a moot point. Honorable Speaker, we know, you know, there are some actions that are not defensible. Because when somebody goes to the public and starts saying, you know, the government is not doing this and you're in government, what does that mean? It just basically shows either you don't know that you're in government, or you don't know what the government is doing, but because you're not privy to it, or you have abandoned your job. So some things are very self-evident. And I don't have to name names. It's not necessarily one person. There are several people who are supposed to be in government, being paid by the government, but behave as if they are not in government. Now, in terms of the government working with the opposition, I think one of the things we must internalize is under the new constitution of 2010, we don't have a government and an opposition. We have a majority party and a minority party in parliament. But we are one united parliament who are supposed to work as parliament. And,
order.
And I think that's
order. Honorable Sankok, you're actually a noisemaker. Honorable Sankok, you've been here for long. You cannot be the only member who is shouting. As far as the speaker is concerned, you're shouting. If you want to express yourself, just use the right way. And just for the information of the members. Yes, carry on.
Well, thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that protection, because we need some decorum in the House. And what I'm saying is, people, we need to internalize that fact. And I know Dr. Mutunga may have confused what was happening before and what's happening now. And when we work together in a bipartisan manner, in legislation, in processing business in this House, it does not mean that the government is in the opposition or the opposition is in the government, because in Parliament, we have a majority and minority party, and we are supposed to work together for the common good, for the welfare of society, a just government of the people. That's what binds us together. And I think the good thing that you see is that because His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta has reached out to everyone in his mission to unite Kenyans, I mean, that's the dream of everyone, that every Kenyan is working together to achieve the greater good, without saying, I am in government or I'm in the opposition, or without saying, I'm in government, but I don't believe in government. We need everyone working together, and that should be our objective. Honorable Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to support, and once again, congratulate the promoter of this bill, the Honorable Katel, for a job well done.
Very well. The floor goes to the member for Chepalungu, the Honorable Kosik Kimutai.
Thank you, Speaker. From the onset, I want to support this amendment bill, and more so because it targets the majority of youth in this country. Honorable Speaker, I fall into that category of the youth in this country. And the recent research shows that youth in Kenya are experiencing much higher unemployment rates than the rest of the Kenyan population. Honorable Speaker, according to the recent survey, which was done in 2020, total unemployment, excluding those engaged in small-scale farming and pastoralists, is estimated to have increased from 17.3 million to 18.1 million. Honorable Speaker, these requirements that are normally made mandatory by employers, that is the KRA clearance. KRA clearance, Honorable Speaker, how do you tell somebody who has never filed any returns anywhere, because there are no turnovers at all, to file returns and get clearance from KRA? Somebody who has never engaged himself or herself in any meaningful business, you are telling that person that you require a clearance certificate from KRA. Number two, how do you make somebody who has never borrowed any loan anywhere to bring a CRP clearance, unless there isn't one, that is the one for Safaricom, which has made it accessible for everybody, the one for Fuliza, unless you are seeking for clearance from Safaricom Fuliza. But all these other lending bodies, because of the requirements that are required for an individual to get loan, you cannot meet the minimum requirement. You want clearance. Honorable Speaker, it's very important that we don't make these bodies that are mandatory for clearance one way of the government to generate revenue. By charging 2,200, by charging 1,050, that is from the good conduct. As a government, we should make all these things free, so that everyone can hustle anywhere in Kenya to get job or not to. Honorable Speaker, right now, unemployment rate in Kenya has become one of the pandemic. I call it pandemic because the next general election, which is coming 2022, I see it will be a revolution in the sense that most Kenyans will decide on their future, not determined by the tribes that we are engaging or regions that we come from. Kenyans will decide the next election based on what will be coming to their table. It doesn't matter the level of education or the careers that we have chosen. What will determine is what will belong to each and every Kenyan. Honorable Speaker, this is very critical for most of us, that the few job employment or vacancies that are in government. The question that we have in Kenya is about who sent you or who do you know. In other countries, Honorable Speaker, the question that comes to all people who are eligible whenever there are job opportunities, the question is, what do you have in terms of credentials? But Kenya, it is the opposite. Who sent you here and who do you know here? Honorable Speaker, we need to change and bring Kenya to a part with other states where we open up the economy, where each and every one of our youth, from whichever level of education, whether you are in certificate level, degree level, or master's level, it's good to open up the economy where everyone is able to get what to do at any given time. During that we are going to employ them. But in reality, How do you employ them when the government itself is not opening up areas of employment? Look at for example, the one for Kenya Police and prison and all that. It's normally done yearly. If you look at our budget, we normally allocate budget for recruitment. But since 2018 up to date, it's only one recruitment which has happened. How about all the other money that we have been injecting to administration for employing our youth? Honorable Speaker, I was in my constituency recently, and I met some youths. You know what they told me? Mheshimiwa, is there a way that you can assist us? We reapply the identity cards. They want to increase their age to 70 years and above. Ndio wapate pesa ya wazee. It is so embarrassing, Honorable Speaker, when you find such situation happening. And majority of them, ile kazi imepaki sahi, ni kazi ya kutafuta kazi. I'm using that so that I make it understandable by everyone. Ile kazi imepaki Kenya ni kutafuta kazi. Yani kazi imekuwa kutafuta kazi. Honorable Speaker, let's change the way and models of how we approach the youth and other people whom every year they are coming out of universities and colleges, so that we can bring this country at par with with other countries in the world. I beg to support this amendment bill, Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this.
Interesting debate, honorable members. The member is consulting. Mutua Barasa, the member for Kimilili. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this very important bill. I say so because all these agencies that employers will seek that a particular person should get clearance from, they are available within this country. And there must be a way where if an employer wants to verify if a particular candidate paid help, loan or not, they should be able to write an email to that particular institution, and that institution should be able to reply to them. So we are not saying that they should not solicit for this information, but they should find their own way at their own cost by an email or by a phone call, so they're going to be able to develop that particular procedure to be able to look at the suitability of that candidate or not, Honorable Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have had a very big problem in this country. And all these even private employers, they always develop their recruitment processes and policies on a very many statutes that this House has approved, Madam Speaker. And the government must begin by demonstrating that this burden of looking for these various documents should never be on the shoulders of unemployed persons, Madam Speaker, because even government itself, you've seen very many advertisements. The government will always ask for these documents. Now, how can a government ask for these documents from a candidate, yet the government itself is the custodian of this very same document, Madam Speaker? It doesn't make sense for Public Service Commission to ask for various people who have applied for these positions, for CRB clearance, for Higher Education Loans Board clearance, for police clearance, yet the government of Kenya is the custodian of these documents. They should be able to access them without bothering the job seekers on how these documents are going to be produced, Madam Speaker. And even as we decry these very many issues that are happening in this country, Madam Speaker, I will want to sharply differ with what the leader of my majorities said at some point, that as Parliament, we should be able to pull in the same direction. We cannot pull in the same direction, Madam Speaker, because we represent the various different interests And at times, we are forced to pull in different directions with the government because we are here to check on the excesses of government, Madam Speaker. So I support this bill. This is a very important bill. And even as we support this bill, Madam Speaker, I want this House to ensure that the very many legislation that this House has approved, those legislations must be followed. They must be implemented, Madam Speaker, because approving is one thing, implementing is the second thing, Madam Speaker. So with these very few remarks, I support, and I really want to thank the honourable member for bringing this bill in this House, and we'll be able to improve it during the committee of the whole House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Just for the members who are working in, members, we are on order number 10. That is employment amendment number 2, Bill, National Assembly Bill number 79 of 2019. Second reading for your preparation, because I can see we have a lot of interest from the members. Let me have the member for North Imenti, Honorable Dawood Rahim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on the outset, I want to congratulate Honorable Kete on his employment bill. Madam Speaker, the rate of unemployment in this country, like the previous speakers have said, hovers in the range of over 50 to 60% of the youths. And Madam Speaker, what happens is when the youths want to go ask for a job or they apply for a job, there's so many bottlenecks which are put in their way in the sense that they are asked for so many, like the good conduct certificate, credit reference bureau, and the other certificates, many other certificates. And complying with them, first of all, takes a lot of time. By the time you get the certificates, the time frame for application has already elapsed. And Madam Speaker, even the cost is too much. Madam Speaker, we need to see how we can manage this thing in the sense that even though this bill is very, very good, we need even to see how that we need to create more jobs for the youth and everybody else, even for the women. Because, Madam Speaker, we need to have equal opportunities. Madam Speaker, there are cases where somebody applies for a job and there are so many applicants.
Order. Honorable Katel, as much as you want to approach your colleague, the honorable member, please can you put on your masks? Yeah, let us protect each other and as much as you're consulting. Very well, carry on, honorable.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have cases where the applications, like the other day, where the jobs were advertised for the UK, the nurses. Madam Speaker, there were only about 2,000 to 3,000 jobs available for nurses to the UK. But you would not imagine, Madam Speaker, we having more than 10 to 15 or 20,000 applicants for those jobs. Madam Speaker, every job in Kenya, one job, about 4,000 people apply for a job, for one job. And Madam Speaker, it becomes very, very difficult if we've got so many people applying for jobs, and at the end of the day, only one becomes successful. So what, Madam Speaker, we need to do as a government is to see how people can get jobs, as well as create employment, a self-employment creation. Madam Speaker, we've got the Uwezo Fund, we've got the Youth Fund, we've got the Women Fund. But Madam Speaker, the only issue we have is some of those funds are not really working because there is so much bottleneck. And Madam Speaker, we need even to remove those bottlenecks in those funds so that the people can be even self-employed. Madam Speaker, I have seen Honorable Kete has even put that contract it should be a simple contract. Any employment contract should be simple and which can be understandable. Many a time, Madam Speaker, you go to any employer and the contract will have so many small letters where it's hard to understand what exactly it is, and it ties you. There should be an exit clause or a notice period, and as well as what kind of notice should be given. Because if somebody has been employed and he's not satisfied, what are the ways to go about complaining? And if there is an employment ombudsman, Madam Speaker, we need to have something in the sense that somebody, if he is aggrieved, if he or she is aggrieved, he can go to some place where he or she can complain that the terms of employment, because, Madam Speaker, going to court is tedious in this country. Even though we've got a new CJ, Madam Martha Koome from my constituency, she's the CJ of Kenya, and she has even promised that we will be finishing cases fast enough. But even that fast enough, Madam Speaker, will take you between 4 to 5 years. And by that time, whatever you wanted to do or give a notice or anything will not have been done. So, Madam Speaker, we need to have an ombudsman. We have got, I think, an employment tribunal, but we need to now speed up any things which are beyond the contract, which cannot, or through arbitration. Madam Speaker, Honorable Sankok earlier mentioned about the highway, and I want to put it on record that the super highway, the one which is being done, is at 60 billion, and not even a coin of the government is in that contract, Madam Speaker. And because it is being done under the public-private partnership. And, Madam Speaker, it is a BOT, buy, operate, and transfer. So that what basically it means, after 30 years, the contractor, whoever is doing it, he is already impacting on the system, because he has employed. Madam Speaker, if anybody goes on Mombasa Road or Wayaki Way, they know how many people are employed. So he has created employment. In the process, in 30 years, if he does not recover his money, he will go a loss. That's his problem. But he will have to give that whole project to the government of Kenya, and that is what the contract is about. But, Madam Speaker, we need to encourage more public-private partnerships. The government and Treasury need not take any more loans, because that is what is draining the employment, what we could do, employment and businesses for the SMEs. So, Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate the honorable member, and I say I join the others and we will vote for it. But like the member for Kimilili has said, Honorable Didams Baraza, this bill has gone through. Madam Speaker, we need to find a way of putting the question for all the bills, private members' bills. Madam Speaker, my bill, this is the second week that we have not been able to vote on it. And, Madam Speaker, we will never reach the threshold of quorum if this is the way we are going to go. So, Madam Speaker, I beseech you and the substantive Speaker that we find a way to get the private members' bills be voted on, because otherwise, if it's going to be Wednesday mornings only, then I'm afraid we will never get private members' bills passed by this Parliament. And not just passing, we need to even implement them. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I beg to support.
Very well, the member for North Imenti. And now I have the request from the member from Navakol, Honorable Wankwe Emmanuel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on the onset, allow me to appreciate and really thank the honorable nominated member, Honorable Keter Gideon, that this bill is timely, is due, and is coming at a time when, Honorable Speaker, the issues that he's addressing would have been best addressed in the PBI. But now that the PBI is no more, or is not yet there, Honorable Speaker, I think he has taken a good shot, and we are moving on well as we wait for the decisions of the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Keter is addressing issues of the youth, And all of us must rise to the occasion and support the youth of this country. With that kind of population rising and the level of academic, Honorable Speaker, it calls that we must consider the youth as a population that is really needy. Let's not train our youth and then leave them on their own. We must check what is happening to them whenever they go to seek for employment. Honorable Speaker, there is the issue that Honorable Keter is addressing this bill to do with the documentation. Whereas documentation is necessary and it supports, Honorable Speaker, in terms of selection and shortlisting, it should not curb members or parties to participate. Remember, Madam Speaker, the Constitution bars us from discriminating anybody. We must not discriminate our youth whenever they are seeking for employment on documentation which otherwise exists. Honorable Speaker, an error happening in a bureau, CRB for example, a youth used a language called Fuliza and borrowed some money because he wanted to date a girlfriend, for example, Honorable Speaker, which is something normal for that age. And then he is blacklisted because he has not paid. And it comes a time now, the youth, a very rightful, qualified youth, wants to get employed, and CRB is on his neck. Madam Speaker, it's unfair, it's unfortunate.
He wants to get employed or he wants to get a girlfriend?
Madam Speaker, social is part of the well-being of a human being. And to get a girlfriend is not illegal, it's something very normal. And even a girlfriend, Honorable Speaker, to travel and visit a boyfriend is very normal. At least she did not have fare, and she had to Fuliza and boarded a motorbike just to go and have a word with the boyfriend.
Just carry on.
Therefore, it's a good thing, and we must also entertain the social well-being of our youth. Therefore, Madam Speaker, what Honorable Keter is addressing is very pertinent. It's really life situation, which we must support the youth, so that this document, Madam Speaker, let the qualified candidate, not only the candidate to be examined. Once you are qualified, Honorable Speaker, they can reference those documents, Honorable Speaker. Why should we cag somebody whose knowledge in the university exists in his brain that he cannot now sit for interview? Therefore, it is something good that Honorable Keter is addressing, and let us support our youth. Whenever employment is called upon, let as many as possible apply, so that from there, once you are shortlisted, you can move in and be given the chance to serve wherever has been made available. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, we need to really consider a creation of employment, especially through the kind of system that is the kind of education that we are offering to our youth. How are we offering employment to our youth? Is it just because they want to be employed in offices? Is it because we want to train them for them to be open in terms of looking for employment? Therefore, Honorable Speaker, whereas we are addressing this issue of discrimination, let us also consider, together with it, the kind of education we are giving to our youth. Let us encourage training in terms of TVETs, such that whereas you are training, you will not be going for formal employment. Instead, you will create employment for yourself. And as you do that, we bring on board, Honorable Speaker, the funding perspective, such that if these documents are open, you go to seek for funds from government organizations, is it WESO fund or whichever fund you want to get, let you make a proposal, you get the funds, and a youth can start his own enterprise and move on without being curbed just because he doesn't have where to show in terms of history. Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I want to thank Honorable Keter. He has already proposed one bill with us, which he has already ascended to, and call upon Honorable Speaker, people who will be awarded honors, Honorable Speaker, this year, let's award youth like Keter, Honorable Keter here, who are fighting for their colleague youth, so that these are the right examples of how the youth are supposed to defend themselves through their own youth in terms of the future. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I say I support this amendment.
Very well. The member for Sirisia, the Honorable Koyi Waluke. The member representing the people of Sirisia. Give him the mic. Honorable member, you do not have a card. but your name is appearing here. Please, can you? Where is your card? Oh, you don't know where you're. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm sorry for that. Where I was sitting, I think
You had forgotten.
there was no handle. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the member, Honorable Keter, for bringing up this bill. It is too timely for us as a House to discuss. Honorable Speaker, the youth of this country, Madam Speaker, have suffered. And as a House, Madam Speaker, we need to be serious as members of this House, members of Parliament who represent the people of Kenya. We represent the youth of this country, Madam Speaker, and many of them, Madam Speaker, who have graduated from universities out there, Madam Speaker, need help. And the country, the government of Kenya, Madam Speaker, need to be serious to create employment for these young people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are sitting on a time bomb. The time, Madam Speaker, these people will get annoyed for the suffering that they are suffering, Madam Speaker, and go on the street of Nairobi or all the cities in this country, Madam Speaker, I think this country is going to be in a big problem, because it is their right for someone, for your child, your son or daughter who has finished school, university, Madam Speaker, to get employment. They don't have money even for their upkeep after finishing universities, their education, Madam Speaker. And they, after finishing a university, remember your son or daughter is begging even to get something to eat, or even soap, or even clothing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I blame the World Bank myself. Many of our institutions, World Bank ordered to be privatized. And initially before, during our time, Madam Speaker, the youth of this country used to enjoy. And when World Bank came in, forcing for privatization, is when this country started to have a problem of employment for our youth. Because this institution or industries, government industries, have collapsed. And sometimes people force the institution or the industry to collapse so that other people can buy it at a throwaway price. And when they buy it at a throwaway price, Madam Speaker, the person who bought it will only employ people who or she knows from his or her tribe. And that is why we are having a very big challenge in this country, Madam Speaker, of employment to the youth. So we need to be serious, Madam Speaker, as I speak, that members of this House must be serious, because over 5 to 6 million youth, Madam Speaker, graduates who are out there looking for a job, tamarking. They are jobless, and Madam Speaker, something must be done immediately as yesterday. Otherwise, the way we are going, Madam Speaker, this country, even the leadership that is going to come in another 2-3 years, I've been seeing the Prime Minister talking about employment. Wherever I've watched him this week, that our youth should get good jobs after completing their schools, but there's no employment. Politicians talk, but after that, Madam Speaker, after getting voting for us as politicians, there's nothing, because that person will again complain after 5 years. So, Madam Speaker, this is the problem that we are having in this country, and it's a very serious problem. And this bill is very important at this time of need, talking about the youth of this country, Madam Speaker. For those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support and urge the members, all of us, to support on this employment bill, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. The member representing the people of Tigania West Constituency, the Honorable Mutunga Kinuthia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to also add my voice to this particular very important bill. Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Ketel, who is the chairman of the parliament, the youthful parliamentary group, has made a major move to support his own category of members. Honorable Speaker, there are very many youths who are not employed in this country. And the reason is that we are not creating jobs in Kenya. In affluent or in a better planned economies, Honorable Speaker, we trained with specific possibilities in mind. We do planning. Kenya today has 2.98% unemployment rate. The unemployment rate for Kenya is 2.98%. Having gone down, having increased by 0.38%. Honorable Speaker, even if we look back those other years when unemployment rate was decreasing, prior to 2019-2020 pandemic, that the decreases were marginal. That implies that we've not been really reducing the unemployment rate at a commensurate or rate at which, you know, we are discharging youths into the market. Honorable Speaker, the timing for training and career development should match the timing for availability of jobs. What we are doing in this country is producing very educated Kenyans and throwing them into job markets, and as many other members have said, their main occupation becomes job seeking. Honorable Speaker, we should therefore ask ourselves, what do we have in our hands to be able to help the youth of this country? Being a country with what I may call sufficient skilled labor, which is not utilized. Don't we think it is time that we changed into a labor-intensive economy where every employer, every institution, every formation that offers employment is compelled to increase the number of people they can engage and reduce the levels of mechanization? I may sound illogical in the 21st century, proposing that we reduce mechanization, but Honorable Speaker, we have a problem. The problem is that we have Kenyans who are not employed, Kenyans who cannot support themselves in anything. Kenyans who leave school, and when they leave universities and colleges, they do not have any mechanisms of supporting themselves. Kenyans who have gone through school under difficult circumstances, they use higher education loans board to give them loans. They use the CDF bursaries. They use, Arambes and borrowing money from individuals. Then when they get into the employable stage where they are already qualified, they have no opportunity for employment. My proposal, Honorable Speaker, is that we need to look at this bill and ask ourselves, don't we think it is time we changed into the mode of asking those who can employ to increase the numbers instead of reducing the numbers? Honorable Speaker, we need to stop lying to our youths. There are very many things that we say as individuals, as institutions, even as government, which are lies. I remember when I was Speaker, the BBI bill did propose that there is going to be creation of a youth commission. In this country, we are alive to the fact that there is a whole ministry of youth. This ministry of youth is sufficient. We don't need a constitutional commission for us to attend to the issues of the youth. Let us tell the youth the truth, that we are not creating jobs, and therefore we need to wake up to the reality that we need to create the jobs. Honourable Speaker, we need to employ all levels of flexibility. Flexibility at the institutional level, flexibility at the training level, so that even the jobs that we are training for should be known, so that we package this usefully to be able to get into the job market. There are opportunities to create jobs. One of them is in the agricultural sector. If we look at the entire value chains, the many value chains that we operate in, and we look at the supplies management within those value chains, we can create many jobs. But we have left our agricultural sector unorganized. We've left our farmers to survive somehow. We cannot declare quantities of anything. We have progressively lost our quota in the world market, in the Eastern African market. We have retrogressed in value addition, which are opportunities to create jobs. It is time to reorganize our agricultural sector so that we may be able to create jobs. When you look at the SMEs in this country, the best targeted the best targeted agencies for destruction are the SMEs. You hear that the Komba has gotten burnt down. You hear Mukuru Kwanjenga has also burnt down. You hear which business have been destroyed. We normally draw the workers out of our towns so that we can have better streets to walk through and we promote other shops. Honourable Speaker, we have traveled widely in this world. We know there are days that are set aside for the hawkers. Streets are closed. Hawkers are organized and they are led to sell their ware. Can't we do such simple things? Is that rocket science? Honourable Speaker, we may need to look at how can we do this issue. The other issue, Honourable Speaker, is the issue of recycling very old people in a situation where we have very many young people who can actually share. So many of them can share the salary of the old people who are supposed to be retired. If someone is retired, let them retire in peace. And these people who have retired, let's look at these individuals who have retired. These are people who have been there for a long time. Possibly they have even stolen from the government. They have invested, they have institutions, they have businesses, yet we give them jobs instead of giving the youth who are suffering. Why don't we have a policy that bars anybody who has retired, who has reached retirement age, from being given a job? Who says that somebody who is that 5 years old cannot head a board? What does somebody who is 70, 80 years old have that is so significantly different from a 35, 40-year-old person? We are making mistakes, yet we see what we are doing. We need to have to include in this bill that anybody who has retired is not qualified to be given a job. End of story. If they want jobs, let them go to the institutions of higher learning and teach at the universities or go to research. That's why we need long-standing experience. Honourable Speaker, if we analyze the situation as it is right now, we have very qualified youth into the market. We discharge them into wastelessness. We are wasting these people. They become permanent job seekers. If they are just job seeking and they have nothing to help them, how do we consider ourselves to be a growing economy? Kenya is a young economy. A young economy should have more of young employed people than more of the old employed people. Honourable Speaker, as I summarize my support to this particular bill, let me look at one thing that is likely to happen in this particular country. Equity does not play when it comes to employment opportunities. When we come to recruitment of disciplined forces, it is the person who has the money who gets that particular position, and we know it. You mean we can't do such small, simple things? It is not possible that those who deserve really get it, those who deserve do not get, those who have the money get it. So the rich only get these positions. How can we say that we are supporting our youth? Honourable Speaker, we are in a situation where we are clearly ourselves creating potential chaos, deliberately creating potential chaos, training young people who are energetic, giving them the knowledge and wasting them away. That is a potential chaotic situation. It is extremely dangerous because, Honourable Speaker, if you look at the level of destitution, people who are not knowledgeable can probably cope with destitution. People who are extremely knowledgeable will not. Even Kenyan youth are very good. We are creating a chaotic situation. We are likely to lead this country into a crisis, and we see it, and we are doing it deliberately. What is so difficult in having policies that will enable us to have the youth employed? we are creating a population of, an increasing population of dissatisfied and people who are suffering a lot of disaffection because we are relegating them to the dogs. We are sending them to waste when they are so young. How can we say we are nation building when the younger people can no longer engage in family life, we can no longer engage in development at young age? Honourable Speaker, we are making mistakes as a country. And it is time we thought of job creation. I think the bill we need right now is the bill for job creation in this country. We need a bill for job creation. We need to compel ourselves. If we have to go through the law, so be it. We compel ourselves to create jobs. We give people quotas. You create so many jobs if you have to invest in this particular country. So that, Honourable Speaker, we can be able to solve this particular problem. Otherwise, we shall get into a crisis, and this crisis will not be manageable. The reason why we have post-election violence is because there are youth. There are youth in this country who are unemployed, who are very poor in terms of livelihood, and therefore they are easily bought with very little money. Then they can engage in whatever is available. That is a crisis or violence. Why do we allow this to happen? Honourable Speaker, there was no need for BBI. What we needed is to create opportunities for Kenyans. And that's the balance we need, that's the direction we need to go. And unless we go that direction, Honourable Speaker, we are headed for crisis. I support.
Very well spoken. Then let me have the member for Nyando, the Honorable Kelo Odoyo.
Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for this opportunity. And on the same breath, thank my brother, Honorable Gideon Keter, for coming up with such an incisive amendment of the Employment Act. It is true that as a nation we are bogged down by documentation, some of which are utterly unnecessary. When people apply for jobs, there are 5 critical documents that they have to annex to their letter of application, some of which, according to the employers, are very critical in determining the character of a person that they would want to recruit. Honorable Speaker, as we know, in this country, those documents are again susceptible to abuse and manipulation. And therefore, there is nothing that stops an applicant from annexing fake documents. Because again, the employers have no wherewithal, they have no capacity to determine what is fake and what is genuine. So this is what should happen. If we still insist that these documents are so necessary, let the employers, be it Public Service Commission, ministries, because they have a latitude to employ a certain number of employees directly, or individual business holders or enterprises, to, on their own volition, write to those investigative authorities so that those investigative authorities would hence reply that indeed we have perused all the files of so-and-so whom you intend to recruit for employment, and the file is clear. He has no criminal record. That is the direction that should be taken. If at all those documents are anything to go by, from where I stand, I've never been convinced that if somebody holds a clearance certificate from DCI or from the Credit Reference Bureau, or from Higher Education Loans Board, and those many others, that is a testament of purity. That is far from it. I mean, we have seen people with all sorts of clearance still turning out to be crooks and siphoning monies from their would-be employers or from their employers. So I am not convinced that these documents are helping in any way. On the same breath, Madam Speaker, at the moment we are grappling with unemployment, which is really a catastrophe. It is a time bomb anywhere in the world, but more specifically in this country. Our president, Uhuru Kenyatta, has so admitted that the country is losing 2 billion shillings to crooks in the name of corruption. Every day, every single day, this country is losing 2 billion shillings. And you know, where Uhuru Kenyatta sits, I have no authority to doubt that kind of statistic. And you can imagine how many youths or unemployed populace would get access to jobs as a result of 2 billion shillings. And it reminds me of this country called Singapore, when they were confronted with the biggest challenge of turning around their country when they left Malaysia and they became independent. And the first leader, Lee Kuan Yew, called his cabinet and said, what should we do in order that we turn around this country? They looked at certain proposals, carried out a comprehensive introspection, and all the things that they set to do, some of which included making it a digital hub for the entire world. The next one is making it the best financial custody. I mean, the best banks in the world are found in Singapore, and many of the people around the world, including crooks who are in the trade of siphoning money abroad, keep their monies in Singapore. Another thing that they looked at is how do we ensure that corruption does not form part and parcel of our day-to-day interactions and transactions. And they stopped that. Today, Singapore has one of the greatest GDPs in the world. It has over 26 people owning up to $30 billion in terms of businesses and wealth. It has over 26 people, over 3,000 people with over, $30 million in their accounts. So that is a decision that only a government can make. Because a time comes when a nation also has to step back, reflect and retool, and ask themselves fundamental questions on the direction they would want to take as a country. That is what Singapore did. That can be done here, Honorable Madam Speaker. The admission from the President that we are losing so much money on a single day, monies that would have perpetuated our infrastructural development, would have expanded businesses, would have created enabling environments for businesses to thrive, is being lost to people who would just use it for their own selfish aggrandizement. Honorable Speaker, in a business course, you will be taught about economies of scale. And this is where the volumes that are driven would create issues such as the needs, would create more markets, and therefore more money. And on this, I'm speaking specifically to what we have been confronted with as a nation lately, which is fuel prices. We understand that this government takes a lot of revenue from the fuel taxes. A liter of petrol, which currently goes for over 137 shillings, 70 shillings, more than half of that goes towards payment of taxes. If this government would be proactive enough by subsidizing fuel levy so that we buy this fuel at 90 shillings, because nothing stops us from buying it at 90 shillings, so that those who have so chosen to park their vehicles at home would come out to drive their vehicles to work. Fares that have so far since escalated would go down, and many people would now jump into matatus. Motorbikers who are in this trade would then have it easier to carry out their businesses. At the end of the day, we are going to push volumes and volumes of oil into the market. And as a result, that is going to create many, many job opportunities to the deserving Kenyans. But here is a government that is thinking that if they hike the fuel prices, they're going to make much more money. You only make much more money if you create a demand. And that demand is met by supply. And that supply is therefore turned around into monies which are then going to be taken over by government taxes, which should also be lesser than what they are today. So as I conclude, Madam Speaker, how I wish that even as our committee in charge of finance is retreating to look at this issue in depth of fuel, which has denied many Kenyans a livelihood, that one of the biggest proposals that will be presented to the executive will be to do away with these punitive taxes that have put us into this mess. And for that, I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Chris Wamalwa, Member for Kimirini. Thank you very much. Wait for the mic, Honorable Member. Sounds of record. Give him the mic. Honorable Chris, you can move to the next machine.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. First and foremost, I want to congratulate Honorable Keter for this particular amendment to the Employment Act. And Madam Speaker, the Employment Act is specifically to provide regulation on matters of employment. It also provides for the fundamental rights, Madam Speaker, of the employees. And it cuts across the entire chain, starting from the time of entry, during the work, and during the exit. Madam Speaker, one of the fundamental issues when you look at Section 9 of this bill, it's about the issue of documentations, the documents that are required maybe before you're employed. And you are aware, Madam Speaker, in this country, even when you want to run for a position right now, there are many documents that are required. Of course, when it comes to academic qualifications, you must have a certificate from a recognized learning institution. And because of also the issue of somebody's conduct, you are required to get a certificate of good conduct from DCI, and it comes with a cost. And right now, there's also a requirement, Madam Speaker, where organizations are demanding that you must get clearance from the CRB, the Credit Reference Bureau. Madam Speaker, the circumstances we are staying in, majority of the people who are looking for employment are the youth. And from statistics, it shows clearly right now, Madam Speaker, that the people who are unemployed, 90%, they are the youth. And this youth, Madam Speaker, most of the time they've just come from the universities or from learning institutions. And if you are told that you need a certificate of good conduct, that certificate does not come without money because you pay money. You have to travel to that particular place, Madam Speaker, to obtain that certificate of good conduct. Again, Madam Speaker, when you are told that you must submit a certificate from CRB. When you go to the Credit Reference Bureau, Madam Speaker, you don't get that certificate without pay, notwithstanding the cost of visiting those areas. And at times, people demanding for other extra money for facilitation. This alone, Madam Speaker, it worsens. When you look at the youth, Madam Speaker, the majority of the people who are fulizering, this fulizer thing, if you are fulizered, Madam Speaker, your name has been taken to the Credit Reference Bureau. We're also finding students, Madam Speaker, recently when there was a proposal that if you are unable to pay your higher education loans board, that your name is taken to the Credit Reference Bureau. These are some of the practices that are worsening and bringing a lot of problems for the youth not to get jobs. So from this proposal, Madam Speaker, which we do support, that we are calling upon the prospective employers, please, to not demand all this. These things can be done at the probation period. Ordinarily, when you are given a job, you are given a probation period, Madam Speaker. And that particular time, an organization, that is the time they can do some due diligence. They can even be able to write to those institutions, whether it's DCI, whether it's the Credit Reference Bureau, and in case of any cost, the employer can pay, and they can even recover from employee salary. That will be the best way to go. But here, going to ask an interviewee who is not even assured of getting that job, Madam Speaker, to incur that cost, that please go and get the Credit Reference Bureau, go and get the certificate from the DCI, and yet you are not even assured whether you'll get that employment. So we are calling upon colleagues to support this. If this prospective employee has been given that job, then during the probation period, the employer has an opportunity to write to these authorities, the Credit Reference Bureau, the DCI, or even the universities, because you are aware people are coming up with the fake degrees. So at that time, we'll be able to minimize this cost, Madam Speaker, because the youth, as we speak right now, they are the ones who are heavily disadvantaged, Madam Speaker. And if we do this, it will help in terms of reducing that cost when it comes to the issues of employment. And as we go by, Madam Speaker, we are aware we have a ministry that is specifically in charge of the services of the youth. I remember there was a bill when we was here, which I seconded, Honorable Sakaja, that we come up with a database. So these are some of the institutions which will be focusing in terms of bringing up issues that will help the youth to acquire employment. In this country, Madam Speaker, we are told the GDP growth now, Madam Speaker, has really reduced drastically. During Kibaki's time, the GDP coming from negative growth, it went up to almost 7%. And when you look at our Vision 2030, Madam Speaker, it was assumed, thought that we'll go to a medium income country, whereby we'll have a sustainable more than 10% GDP growth. Unfortunately, it has not happened. And if we encourage many youth through such policies, Madam Speaker, to get employment, you will increase the number of the people who will be paying taxes. Because in this country, we look at the taxes which will help in running the operations of the country. And the biggest labor force we have are the youth. So the government should put measures in place, Madam Speaker, that will make things easier for the youth to get employed. And once they enter into the employment bracket, Madam Speaker, it will increase the amount of money that they'll be able to remit in terms of payee, taxation to KRA. So we'll not be having a shortfall, Madam Speaker, when it comes to raising revenue in this country that will run the operations of this country. So this is an important bill, Madam Speaker, particularly to the youth, and I call upon my colleagues to support it so that we can remove those mandatory documentations, which are too many, Madam Speaker, and to these youth who cannot even afford, Madam Speaker, at that particular time to acquire them. Otherwise, I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
The Honorable Session Wilson, nominated.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this amendment bill, and I congratulate Honorable Keter for bringing this amendment. Honorable Speaker, as we do so, of course, the bureaucracies that have been created as a requirement by various employers is because of an obvious factor. Labor is a factor of production. And in this country, historically, there's been a scarcity of labor, and these conditions were never in place. But now, currently, we have got one of the highest unemployment rate in the world from statistics, particularly when you look at youth unemployment placed at 68%. These barriers that have been in existence have greatly affected the youth. And when you look at statistics in this country, and it has been alluded by many, through the youth unemployment, of course, we have a very high oversupply of even skilled labor. Honorable Speaker, it is not a surprise to get graduates in different fields doing very odd jobs, either of security or either of border, even with the various qualifications from various universities. Another area of oversupply, if you look at it in the teaching service, currently we've got close to over 350,000 trained and unemployed teachers, and some graduated as far back as 2009. This, Honorable Speaker, is a phenomenon that we must deal with. Mr. Speaker, I would have expected the leader of majority not to delve into trivial politics, but to tell us what the government is doing in implementing Vision 2030 agenda. And Vision 2030 should be guided by a clear, simple, strategic plan to ensure that all youth are employed. And I think that should be the target, Honorable Speaker. If we look at various economies, we've talked about various economies, because, of course, making this amendment and removing barriers is not enough. It is good to look at the overall objective of ensuring that the youth of this country are employed. When you look at a country like Malaysia, if I look at statistics of 2007, in certain sectors of Malaysia, for example. Malaysia, in terms of industrial revolution, in terms of service industry, and I'll refer to a service industry which Kenya can afford. And Malaysia benchmarked from Kenya in the 60s. And they went back and they've developed very specific, successive, 5-year strategic plans which must succeed. And in the area of tourism, in 2007, Malaysia would receive 23 million tourists against the population of that time of 22 million, meaning each citizen was receiving a tourist. And that really is a great income to that particular country. The other area of service industry in Malaysia is education that receives many foreigners to study in their universities. So the service industry alone in Malaysia is driving the economy in a very tremendous way. And labor availability in Malaysia is beyond the existing population to an extent that Malaysia is importing labor in huge numbers from Philippines, India, and Singapore. And when we look at Kenya, the economy of Kenya, it has that ability to create jobs for all the citizens and even employ others from elsewhere. Honorable Speaker, as I support this bill, I would wish to remind the House of the provision of Article 54 of the Constitution. Our Constitution was optimistically written and negotiated. And Article 54 says very clearly, it is the responsibility of the government to train the youth and provide them with meaningful employment. Train the youth, and not just the youth, all the youth. And therefore, progressively, within the frameworks of Vision 2030, National Government Economic Agenda, and even the manifestos that the various political parties are generating prior to elections, it should be conscious to the provision of Article 54. And I also urge the youth, led by Honorable Keter and the rest, we need to struggle, lobby, and fight and advocate for all the youth to be employed in this country so that they can lead decent and meaningful lives. So the Constitution was not written in vain. This National Assembly, the executive, and the economic planners of this country should customize and endeavor to ensure that this provision is implemented. And I can see within the master plan of Vision 2030, which also talks of Kenya should be able to produce the most competitive human resource by the year 2030. We should not only be having skilled labor within the country, but even exporting labor to other markets and other economies. Honorable Speaker, the bureaucracies that have been created, that you go and collect, get clearance certificate from income tax, get good certificate of good conduct from the Director of Criminal Investigations Department. These are just semantics to pacify the youth who are not employed. This was never done before. During times when there was shortage of personnel, those of us who were trained in various universities, before we even left universities, we were employed before we even satisfied the Board of Examiners that we've passed. So, and I think, Honorable Speaker, what Kenya should be doing is to grapple and deal with finality with the problem of youth and employment. Honorable Speaker, the other aspect of data should be automated. As a country, we've come so far in terms of ICT integration in governance, and therefore data should be digitized for all citizens, including the unemployed youth, so that when there are jobs, it would be very easy to assemble those data and analyze. Honorable Speaker, this country at some point shifted the retirement age from 55 to 60 without any good reasons. And it was an escapist strategy to run away from meeting the pensions obligations. Mr. Speaker, this has created a logjam in the public service. And I've quoted the teaching service. If we are having 350,000 trained and unemployed teachers, what rationale do we have as an economy to push the retirement age to 60? Honorable Speaker, there is need for government to review the retirement age in the public service and scale it down to 55, so that the youth who are trained and unemployed, I can imagine a teacher who graduated in 2009 and cannot be employed because of unavailability of space. And this unavailability of space is created by raising the retirement age. And not just raising the retirement age. There has been a practice in the public service that even those who attain retirement age are given contract extension. Mr. Speaker, this is an affront against the youth. If
Honorable
indeed,
Session, you've repeatedly referred me as Mr. Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Not once, not twice.
Yeah, Madam
But
Speaker,
several.
I apologize. You know, when I'm in the mood of
I
speaking,
confirm
I apologize, Honorable Speaker.
I confirm that I'm a madam.
And then finally, Honorable Speaker, we sometimes in this house, we trivialize very serious matters. If we talk about bottom-up economic model, middle-out economic model, which Joe Biden has been talking about, if we talk about investment, more investment in the social sector, we are talking about the same things. And what we are simply saying is that we must work hard, make our economy work. And I believe that will be the flagship of the coming general elections, that the theme of the general election is revival of the economy and ensuring that the youth.
Then let me have the member for Juju Constituency, the Honorable Koimburi George.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice in this bill. Honorable Speaker, this government has lost focus. During campaign 2017, they promised Kenyans that they will make more jobs to our youth. Now they have spent over 4 years. Madam Speaker, I want to support Honorable Sankok by saying that this government has spent over 80 billion constructing a very wide road, whereas they can use the same money to empower our youth, our local Kenyans, like Mama Boga, Hustler Nation, those they have no jobs, and those have no capital to do their business. Honorable Speaker, I want to support the bill by saying, coming general election, we urge the government that they must bring job to our youth to enable them to enable them continue building our nation and paying taxes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Is considering the other members. Honour members, I have 19 requests from members who are wishing to speak to the same, and some have not even carried their card that they expressed their interest to speak. Dr. Nyikal, you had requested to speak. Dr. Nyikal, just give him the mic. Otherwise, you can use the dispatch. Yes,
Okay.
there you go.
Thank you,
Madam Speaker, for giving me opportunity to contribute to this bill. Madam Speaker, the objective of this bill is very clear and specific: to remove the requirements that have financial implications at the time of application for jobs. Madam Speaker, what that means, we have put many requirements, and although these requirements are in line with our Constitution, particularly Chapter 6, they have become an hindrance and actually a roadblock to people who are applying for jobs. For example, you need certificates from KRA to know that you are tax compliant, certificate from the police of good standing, you need a certificate from Credit Reference Bureau, you need a certificate from HELB, you need a certificate from EACC, and all these have financial requirement. Yet, the people who are applying for these jobs actually many times have financial hardships and are not able to just raise the money to get these certificates done. So, Madam Speaker, as much as it is good that we look at Chapter 6, that we look at the integrity of the people that we employ, so that we ensure that services are delivered efficiently by people who have the service the country has had when they're offering services, it has turned out that they are basically a disadvantage. And particularly to the youth, whenever you have an application for jobs, you are amazed at the number of people who are going for small jobs that have been advertised. And when we then bring these further roadblocks, it's not fair. I think that is what this bill is about. Although we cannot rule out completely or ignore completely the requirements of Chapter 6, this bill actually does provide that at the time that you are actually offering the jobs or getting into contract, then you can ask, could that make sense? At that time, you are more likely to get the job, you can get access, and it can go to the extent that actually you have been employed, then the confirmation. And it does provide also that should it be found that you have issues that have been raised, you can be removed from that job. So I think the bill has been very well thought out. It addresses a specific problem, and it also gives a way out so that we balance between the need to observe the issues of integrity without blocking people from applying for jobs. And I think that is all it is. Madam Speaker, it also brings out one issue. When we are implementing laws and policies, it is important to look at the impact of these policies on the people, particularly the common people that they're supposed to serve. Many times they look good, many times they look progressive, but at the time of application, they actually become a great disservice. I'll give you another example in the education sector, in higher education. We moved in a policy because of COVID, where we have virtual learning. What it has brought is a requirement for laptops and smartphones as an absolute requirement for a student to get into university. Yet, when we are sending out the fee structure, this is not out. So many students actually get shocked when they get to the university and they're finding learning is virtual, and yet they cannot participate. So it's always important that when we are doing policies, laws, and things and implementing them, we must look at the implication. To me, that is the greatest message that is coming out of this bill. However, the real issue with employment is the issue that we have to create jobs. The issues that we were looking at, like getting the youth council, like getting tax relief that were in the BBI, I think are extremely important. Whatever party we belong to, whatever political line we are in, I think we must agree, whatever we call these things, we can call them anything, bottoms up and so on. But the thing is, do we create jobs for our youth? And BBI, people say that, oh, BBI is no more. It is not the term that is important, it is the content. What is it that it was describing? And to me, whatever happens, we must go back and look at the contents of all these ideas we have and implement them without bogging people down with the political jargon that we go into. I think job creation is the big thing. We must look at it. Okay, we can reduce the age of retirement, but I've looked at that and look at what happened in Spain. You then have a huge number of people who are actually retired, but actually are being paid pension. So you then up with the pension load for people who actually now are not working at all, and you are paying them. So I think it is much greater than the simple things. We have to go back in our economy, in our politics, and find the best way of creating jobs. But for this bill, I think it addresses the problem and gives a solution. And for that, Madam Speaker, I support.
You support very well. The member, Ibrahim Sahal, nominated member. Honorable Ibrahim Sahal.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia hii nafasi ya kuchangia hii msaada ya vijana. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni huzuni sana kuona vijana wetu ambao ni wasomi wakitangatanga wakirandaranda ndani ya miji. Mheshimiwa Spika, hao watoto walisomeshwa na wazazi ambayo walisomeshwa na hali ngumu sana kulipa karo ya shule na baadaye kuona hawana kazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, juzi nilikuwa Isli nikaona watoto wakijifanyia biashara. Wakatafuta pesa, walifungua maduka. Mishoe wanasumbuliwa na KRA, usanyaji wa karo wa ushuru na City Council. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo inafanya vijana roho yao iharibike na kuenda kufanya uhalifu. Baadaye tutasema vijana wa Kenya wameharibika, wamekuwa wahalifu, wamekuwa nini. Hiyo ndio inachangia. Mheshimiwa Spika, ile ingine ni
the member nominated Sahal, there's a point of order by the honorable member for Navakol. Yes. Honorable member for Navakol. Emmanuel.
Na Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba ni Mheshimiwa mwenzangu atufahamishe kwamba ametumia lugha au tamshi fulani akisema kwamba vijana wanatangatanga. Naomba nijue Mheshimiwa Spika, akisema tangatanga maana yake ni nini Mheshimiwa Spika?
Tangatanga ni kutangatanga.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kutangatanga ni kutembea hovyo. Watoto hawana kazi, wanaenda kutembea ndani ya miji. Ni sawa kusema ni kutangatanga. Kutangatanga hata ni Kiswahili, Mheshimiwa Spika.
Yes.
Sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, tunafanya watoto roho yao iharibike ili wasifanye biashara. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukifanya watoto kila siku waende kwa maofisi wakibeba makaratasi, certificate, cheti kutafuta kazi, hiyo itafunja hawa roho. Mimi ninasema hivi, hata vijana wetu waende wafanye biashara. Kama wanaweza kupata pesa kidogo, mtu anaweza kujitengenezea ka biashara kidogo. Ile ingine Mheshimiwa Spika ni kuuliza vijana, uko na cheo, uko na cheti ya mwendo mzuri, uko na cheti cha mkopo. Hiyo imeharibu watoto na hawana pesa ambayo wanaweza kujilipia hiyo pesa. Nataka kusema hivi, naunga mkono kwa hii msaada na hongera Mheshimiwa Kater. Asante sana.
Asante Mheshimiwa Sahal. Na sasa tumpe nafasi Mheshimiwa member for Mwingi West. Honorable Nguna Ngusia, is in the house? Is in the consultation room. Then member for Ingebe Central, the Honorable Irinko Kubai.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this bill, this amendment bill, your employment bill. Madam Speaker, let me thank Honorable Kate for bringing this one. And at least, I hope once it is enacted, it will bring sanity, it will bring, it will solve a lot of problems which the youth are already encountering, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, over half of the population of this country is made up of the youth, and I think 3/4 of the same youth are unemployed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you go out there and fight the youth who are loitering, it has been said, without jobs, they claim that we as MPs, we don't assist them to get jobs. And when you try to explain that the system is the one which has bogged itself with so many other things and forgotten the youth, it becomes very difficult, Madam Speaker. The entities which are supposed to be employing these people, some of them are closing up because of the poor economy, others cannot expand, and therefore they cannot absorb these youths. The government itself, which is supposed to have created structures and infrastructure, and also open up avenues for creation of jobs, like industries and other things, the government has not done the same. Therefore, you find that once we train the youth, and once they are already trained, they are left out there now without anything to do. And that is why our youths, most of them are going into drugs, into crime, and also they start now even doing things which are against the social norm. Madam Speaker, I only mention an issue like the youth fund. We have a youth fund in this country which gives youth some money so that they can start their own enterprises, Madam Speaker. But once these youths they apply for this money, they don't get it. Like in my constituency, Madam Speaker, I have a big problem where the ministry came in and recruited so many youth, and they had to cough 1,500 per youth to have that certificate and get that money. But unfortunately, once that was done, they did not get the same money. And now they blame the MP, that is me, or they blame other leaders for not having got that money. But it is the system which is not working in tandem with the numbers of the youth we have. Why do you ask a young person to fill a form to give money and you want to give the same? That is a big problem. Come to these other requirements, Madam Speaker, whereby if you want a job, you will have to go and get those certificates from DCI, CRB, ESCC, and the like. Madam Speaker, the person who is being asked to bring these documents does not even, they are even borrowing fare to go and get those things from those offices, Madam Speaker. And once you get those documents, you are not guaranteed employment. Madam Speaker, we are going wrong in this country in that management of our workforce, human resources not being managed properly, and that is why we find that the streets are full of young people doing nothing, and some offices have been closed, industries are not working, and that is why now to get the revenue from the few people who are working, you have to increase taxes left, right, and center. Madam Speaker, look at the education sector, where we are training teachers, but we are not employing them. You have teachers, the other day they closed these P1 colleges. But initially, they were training a lot of teachers. But at the end of the day, once the teachers are out there, they don't get employment. They are given TSC numbers. They keep floating with them. In my constituency, I've got people who did they got their certificates of education going back in 2009, 2010, and to date they have not been employed. They are growing hot, and they have no guarantee that they will be employed. And when you go to our schools, you find that there are so many schools which are understaffed. So teachers are out there, and the children are in school, and they have no teachers, and the teachers are not being employed. That is very poor planning, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the youth are getting the worst, or they are receiving everything in a hot cup, Madam Speaker. These youths themselves, they don't have even ID cards. They spend the whole day queuing at the registration centers, and they end up not getting ID cards. If there's a job which is coming up, they are running up and down looking for an ID card so that they can get a job, because they cannot be employed without an ID card. Therefore, now the whole focus in this country, I have come to observe, is that most of the youth now are looking for these disciplined forces. Maybe the police service, KDF, and also the prisons, and other disciplined forces, because those are directly now employing, and at least you get a salary after the short training you go into. Why? Because these other jobs, which each and every person would be looking for, it could have been easier, but they are not available. Madam Speaker, job creation. In this country, we have got so many youth who can do other things without getting employed, or without going for the white-collar jobs, Madam Speaker. We need to have even electricity in our rural areas. Madam Speaker, if you go to the rural areas, and especially in my constituency, we have only 30% electricity connection. And therefore, even if a certain young person wants to open a barber shop or a salon so that you can do hairdressing, or maybe a car wash, you cannot, because there's no power, and these people can do it. But once you go and ask for Rural Electrification Authority to give you a line from point A to B, it takes 3 to 4 years. You go to the Kenya Power and Lighting, KPLC, for a meter, to get a meter, so that it can be fixed in your premises. You start a job, it takes 4 to 5 years. We have cases in my constituency where transformers have been put in place 7 years ago, but they have never produced any light to serve anybody in this country. I don't know where we went wrong. We misplaced our priorities, and that is why we cannot create jobs for our people. If we had electricity across the country, everybody will be employed. Everybody will be getting something to do. People could be even doing archeries and incubate a chicken and get money from that business, Madam Speaker. Therefore, Madam Speaker, we should focus on how to reduce this volume of unemployed people in our streets, and if we don't do so, it becomes a time bomb. Madam Speaker, we are going to the election period, and each and every person who will be going for an elective position, you'll find them being followed by a troop or a battalion of youths who are coming to you for handouts because they need something to keep them going. And therefore, in the process, when now we have these shares of youth following politicians, that is where hooliganism starts. That is where we get problems like even arson, vandalism, and political violence. These are created because everybody is craving to wants these politicians to have these little handouts because they have nothing else to do. But if we had these youths, if they had their own jobs, if they had their work, they had work to do, they should not be running about going into politics or even going to follow politicians. They could be concentrating in their jobs. Madam Speaker, we need to support the technical training institutes. The technical training institutes are there which will train people for vocational training, those people who can do their own work without going to look for jobs in parastatus or other places. And more so they should also be able to sustain their lives without going to other people. Therefore, Madam Speaker, because I can see my time is gone, I really support this bill, and I know it will go a long way in solving this serious problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Members, as I said earlier, that I have 17 now, actually 20 requests from members who want to contribute. Others have been here very early in the morning, and we must follow our list religiously. But maybe for your information, those who may not be able to wait, even as we adjourn the House at 1 p.m., the same bill will have a balance of around 30 to 35 minutes. And that is in the event that, according to our own standing order, no one would want to call upon a closure of debate. So the member for Murua Dikiri, you are the next on the list. Honorable Kipi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for letting me also have an opportunity to make a contribution to this particular amendment made by Mheshimiwa.
Of experience. To start with, Madam Speaker, because if we look at this one serious roadblock called experience, then no youth will get a job because they are fresh from colleges and they have had no place to get experience. Of our young trained graduates who are supposed to join the job market. One, Madam Speaker, even if this student or this somebody who is looking for a job gets money to of time for CRB to clear this person, it can take even 2-3 weeks, Madam Speaker. And the time of this one looking for a job, Madam, gets expired. Madam Speaker, the issue of certificate of good conduct, it's so painful to us, so painful to this young man, Madam Speaker, because if actually Kenya as a country has this body code that issues certificate of good conduct, every citizen of this country who has no criminal record, Madam Speaker, must be having a certificate of good conduct. So it's not a matter that you produce a certificate itself. It is supposed, in fact, to be on soft system, so that everybody who has a problem is the only one who gets a certificate of no good conduct. But anybody, at any time, any employer can click your name, can click the name of the applicant and find that he is good on certificate of good conduct, not necessarily producing the certificate itself. Madam Speaker, finally, if I've come to this term, as Mheshimiwa for Dikir has just said, if I'll move to support this, Madam Speaker, because we have students who are here in this country, and these are living with disabilities, Madam Speaker. They must be given free training, supported by government, because one, they are disabled, Madam Speaker. If you look at this, Mheshimiwa, I have a national school in my constituency called CBM Nalondo. This school produces the best. But now, Madam Speaker, we have serious challenges with these ones. One, they can't walk. Two, they need medication, free medication in this institution, Madam Speaker. So if I look at this, I support this amendment bill because it's very important for our youth. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member for Mbumula, Honorable Mabonga Mambu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also put my voice on this important bill.
And you remember you are the first one to say members should be considered, I don't know.
Definitely, I'll be very considerate. Madam Speaker, this is a very timely bill because if, as leaders, we have to be very serious to analyze what is happening in this country. And if we do not fix it, it will soon become an emergency and a crisis. There is an outcry. And Madam Speaker, the importance of this bill is to ensure that those job seekers do not spend even a single cent while looking for employment. Because you are looking for documents from people who have no even meal to eat. And some of them have to travel to get these documents for clearance. Why do we have a probation period of an employee, a new employee in an organization? Is for you to check the records of this person, for a person to be acquainted on the working ethics of an organization. And if you have any query, you are able now to establish from these agencies so that you have the mandate either to keep the person you have employed or relinquish the job of a person who has been newly employed. So I would urge that the government come up and ensure that our people or young generation who are looking for jobs are not restricted in any way with this kind of documents. Because the minimum amount that is required on these old documents is about 6,000. You apply a job that you're not sure you're going to get, maybe, or you're going to get, or tomorrow again another one comes up, you apply, within 1 month you've spent over 30,000, yet you have nothing to eat. Madam Speaker, I sit on ICT committee and I want to recommend this, that maybe when it comes to the next stage, we have to look at this Huduma number. With now every Kenyan having been registered to Huduma number, you are able to access the information of somebody through that number if they are serious. So it's important that the government sets up an agency that any information that is required, any prospective employer that wants to get a person's record must just click on a Huduma number and you will get all information that you want. So it's very important that during that period of probation, they will be able to get every kind of information that is required, so that we remove all these bottlenecks from our young people who are looking for employment. That is the bottom line, Madam Speaker, and it's an outcry. Some of the youth have missed a lot of opportunities, not only in private organization, even in government, just because they do not have 2,000 or 3,000 shillings to get this kind of certificates that are required during employment period. So it's important as we sit here, when we pass these bills or these amendments, it's important to ensure that it's implemented to the letter, because youth are crying, and actually 80% of the population are the young people who are looking for employment. Go to the tertiary, every year they are being released. University, every year they are being released. So we must stamp our authority and have a highway to the youth so that they can get what they need at the right time, at the right age, and at the right moment. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to be that brief so that I give opportunity to other members to contribute, because they equally have a young generation in their constituencies. Thanks, Madam Speaker. I support.
Very well. A good example, the member for Bumula. Member for Mandela North.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support this bill by Honorable Kater. It is very timely, and I wish that this had come quite early in time. Nevertheless, the gist of the matter is issue of employment. These youths are first-timers, people looking to be employed. But when the government or government agencies ask them to provide clearances from EACC, DCI, HELP, KRA, and yet they're not sure whether they will get this job. Members before me have said it amounts to around 6,000, some are saying 10,000. But look at the cumulatively, even looking for that clearance itself costs money. Sometimes they visit these offices. A clearance like the East Africa Anti-Corruption, they say it's free. But look at how do you obtain that kind of clearance? You go through a lawyer. You pay. It's not for free. So it's actually high time that employers are asked to employ these youths upon satisfying and being absorbed. Then they are given time within 3 months, which is also the preparation period, to provide those clearance certificates. And in fact, if you have employed him already, even that kind of amount should be absorbed by the employer. It is sad that youths who have no experience are being asked, like Credit Reference Bureau, they haven't done businesses, they have not been absorbed anywhere else. Why will you ask for it? Another one is about help. They don't have employment. How will they have cleared this help loan for the universities? It is actually sad. We are talking about an entire almost 60% of Kenyans, youths who are unemployed. This is 35 years and below. So if we have this kind of amendment and we ensure that it is actually implemented, then we will help the youths. Once we have this kind of amendments and it goes through that there's employment for the youths, we still urge the government to roll out elaborate plans for ensuring the youths are absorbed. It is sad that you are told we want to increase employment of the youths, we want to absorb youths, we want to expand the economy, but facilitating the youths to acquire the employment is difficult. Some youths are in remote places. They have to travel all the way. That means they pay for bus fare. They have to pay for lodging to spend as they wait for these clearances. They have to go to these offices. Maybe it's their first time. And what happens? They get frustrated. And they just go back without the document. Then they appear in an interview. They are told, you don't have these documents, A, B, and C. So they just go back. Then the unemployment rate continues, and it's a cycle. So I think this bill is very, very timely. We support it, and actually go further to ensure that we pass it in as soon as possible, so that our youths, who are 60% of Kenyans, get the employment without bureaucracies. I support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member for Gil, Honorable Wanjira Wangari, next on my request list.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to add my voice to this very important bill. I'm actually very proud that Honorable Keter comes from Nakuru County. We are proud of you. You are one of the people who have actually come to this house to represent the youth, and you have done exactly that. Madam Speaker, if you want to know how big this problem is, just recently, the IEBC announced to recruit clerks for registration, Madam Speaker. We have members or young people in this country, holders of a master's degree, applying to be a clerk that only requires a postgraduate, a diploma, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, it still doesn't make sense at all why the government wants you to pay to actually be cleared that you're not corrupt. They want you to pay to be cleared that you're not a criminal. They want you to pay to actually be cleared that you pay your taxes. Madam Speaker, this had come even in the 11th Parliament. It came as in terms of the motions that were moved in this House. They were also moved in the Senate where I sat then, Madam Speaker. But I like that Honorable Keter has gone a step forward, because motions in this country and in this Parliament, Madam Speaker, are not usually very good to monitor or to implement. But when you put it in law, Madam Speaker, you make it mandatory that they have to be implemented. So I congratulate Keter for that thought, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, without repeating, the one thing I would